Well, we'll get started. People are logged in. If you're watching at home on Zoom, welcome. And a handful of people here in the room, welcome to all of you. Anybody here for the first time? Welcome. Welcome back, everybody else. I'm excited to start the process of reopening after, I guess, about 3 months now of not having class in person and being online for classes. I've been live streaming the classes for a long time, but this was the first time where I had to just teach to a computer or a camera and not have anybody in the room. I'm always live streaming something where I'm in the room with people, and of course one of the core things of Buddhism is that it's what's referred to as an oral tradition, is that you share the teachings with humans. We share them with each other. And of course, there's humans on the other side of these cameras. We know that. But it's not quite the same as being in the room together. So I'm really happy that some people came tonight. Welcome. And there's something different. I don't know what it is, but there is something different about meditating in a group than meditating by yourself. My own experience is that it feels a bit different to me when I'm meditating with a bunch of people than when I'm on my own. I do both all of the time, but something that I like about the, I guess energy is the appropriate term, that's built of meditating together. And this was one of the things that the Buddha said, is to kind of get together regularly to practice, to discuss the Dharma, that it's so much what he's teaching is about the internal development of wisdom and compassion, but that it's done in relationship, that it's a relational practice. And so welcome here tonight. And I apologize to everybody at home that is not with community, and I'm talking about community, but I'm going to talk about that some tonight. So we'll begin with a period of guided meditation. So find a way to sit that is appropriate for meditation, your own posture that you feel is sustainable, upright, relaxed. And then as you're ready, allowing your eyes to be closed. And we establish mindfulness, the practice of non-judgmental awareness of the present time experience of breath and body and emotions and thoughts, sense doors. And to prepare for our embodied mindfulness practice, take a moment to relax any unnecessary tension. Softening into the chair, the cushion, the couch. Allowing the eyes to be softly closed, the jaw to be slack. Releasing any unnecessary tension in the throat, chest, shoulders. Breathing in, feel the expanding of the chest, the rising of the belly. Breathing out, soften your belly. Let go of any hardness, resistance, tension that we may hold in our stomachs. And establishing an inner attitude of friendliness, of loving kindness, that the Buddha referred to as metta. The wish, may all beings be at ease. Starting with yourself as a living being worthy of ease, well-being. Establishing this friendly wish and attitude towards ourselves. May I be at ease with my own mind, with whatever thoughts arise, plans, memories, fears, worries. May I be at ease in this body, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. May I be at ease with the emotions, the joyous and pleasant emotions, as well as the difficult and afflictive emotions. Extending this same goodwill to each other. Everyone gathering, whether in person or at home, in the Zoom group, sending loving kindness to each other, establishing a heart of goodwill. May you be at ease with yourself just as you are. And with this attitude of loving kindness established, we turn towards the practice of mindfulness to develop wisdom, to experience liberation. Beginning with the body, first foundation. Body, sitting, feeling, breathing. Breathing in, feel the sensations created by the breath. Receive the breath. The Buddha offered us a straightforward and simple meditation instruction. He said, breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, one knows I breathe out. What allows you to know the breath, to stay present, receiving the sensations of breathing. There are still sounds and thoughts, but we let that recede to the background as we intentionally direct our awareness to the sensations of the breath. When the attention, our awareness drifts from awareness of the breath to something else, back to sounds or thoughts, gently returning, softening the belly, releasing the jaw. With an attitude of friendliness, we come back to the present time experience of mindfulness of the breath over and over. This is our preliminary practice, the foundation, learning to be present. If you're new to the practice, you can continue to focus on the breath, or even if you've been practicing for a while but feel like keeping it quite simple tonight. But the Buddha's instructions to develop wisdom are to expand beyond the breath, bring awareness to our whole body, from head to toe, feeling the sensation of skin, awareness of the skeleton, the bones, and all of the flesh and organs, lungs breathing, heart beating, stomach and intestines digesting, saliva and blood, and urine and feces, fingernails and ligaments, this human form. We bring awareness to the body and any sensations that the body is experiencing. And as we do this, we begin to wake up to the impermanent reality, the Dhamma, the truth of impermanence is revealed in every sensation, every breath. Expanding from the whole body to open to the sense doors, the sounds included in our meditation. Smell, taste, images, and thoughts, rather than ignoring the mind. We become mindful, present time, non-judgmental awareness of thoughts. Just as we know the breath, we come to know the mind. Thoughts arising and passing, impermanent phenomena. Just as the lungs breathe, the heart beats, our mind thinks. It's not the goal of meditation to stop the mind, but to see it clearly. whether it's calm or agitated, loud or quiet. We bring kind awareness to our own minds. May I be at ease with my mind, which includes the emotions, joy and sorrow, excitement and fear, hatred and love, all experienced in the mind. So we bring awareness to the impermanent and often impersonal experience of the body and heart and mind. We begin to wake up to our perception of not just what's happening moment to moment, but how it feels, the pleasant thoughts that we like, that we chase, that we cling to, the unpleasant thoughts that we are also seduced by. We have to figure it out. Our anger, resentments, the pleasant sensations and unpleasant sensations and emotions. Mindfulness teaches us that we have the enormous capacity to be uncomfortable and not unhappy. By learning to meet our own pain, physical, emotional, mental, with friendliness and compassion, we learn to end that extra layer of suffering that we create. Each moment, an opportunity to let go of something we're clinging to soften to something we're tense about. Maybe turn off the AC for me. Got a little chilly, right? Refreshing. So welcome, and before I get into some thoughts that I have, any questions about the meditation instructions or practice or this technique of developing transformational wisdom through paying attention to ourselves, through mindfulness of awareness of the body and mind and how it's feeling, what we're perceiving, pleasant, unpleasant. Any questions about the instructions here in the room, or if anybody at home has questions about the meditation instructions? If you're at home and you want to interact, there's a way to raise your hand on the Zoom. I think it's under your picture or it's under the chat by your name. It'll say, I want to raise my hand, and then I'll get a little blue hand to know that you want to interact. So any questions about this practice of, we call it mindfulness, satipatthana, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, that is really the core meditation instruction from the Buddha that promises liberation, freedom from the causes of suffering that we turn towards, and we see, oh, this is how I suffer. I'm clinging. I'm pushing away. I'm craving. This is why I'm not happy. You know, the inquiry is, why am I not at ease right now? What is blocking my ability to be at ease? And first, there's that huge philosophical understanding that we have to come to, that what Buddhism offers is peace, ease, freedom in the midst of difficulties. So often we think, well, of course I'm not at ease because there's all of these difficulties. There's all of this pain in my life and pain in the world. So of course I'm not at ease. But the whole Buddhist promise is that we can actually learn to be at ease in the midst of pain. Not free from pain, not that old material view that says I'll be happy when I'm having pleasure all of the time. It says I'm going to learn to be happy, at ease, contented, peaceful, even when life is incredibly unpleasant. Even when the knees are aching and the back is aching and the mind is loud or critical or afraid, or even in the midst of grief, that there's an ability to be at peace with our emotions, with our thoughts, with our sensations, with our pain. And I think that this is one of the really radical things that the Buddha taught that I think is drastically misunderstood by so many meditators who think like, yeah, I want to get still. I want to get peaceful. I want to get, I want this to feel good. You ever do that to yourself? Like, it wasn't a very good meditation. Like, what's not a good meditation? Like, because it was uncomfortable? The Buddha really wasn't interested in people being comfortable. He was quite interested in us being having that at peace with, you know what I'm saying? I'll say it over and over. I feel like it's the only hope for us in this human body that is going to continue to age and ache and face sickness, and this human heart that's going to continue to be tender and vulnerable and offended by reality all of the time, and this human mind that craves pleasure and clings to it and creates so much suffering for ourselves. that our greatest hope is this mindfulness practice of see clearly, stop taking it so personally, and you won't be so reactive, because you'll see, oh, this is just more impermanent thoughts and feelings and emotions and not worth suffering about. But we can't do it just by reading the book. We have to get our ass on the cushion. It's in what we call an insight that happens through direct experience of the intimacy that we develop with our own minds and bodies and world. Does it feel like that to you? Like I like that term. Meditation is really its intimacy. You're really turning towards and embracing and feeling and learning to care. All of the qualities of intimacy. We often think about intimacy with someone else, where you're really paying attention and you're really connected. But that's exactly what mindfulness is. It's really paying attention and really connected to our own internal experience. And then we can with each other. So was there a hand? I have one online. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm very new to this practice, and this is probably like a technique 101 question, but so I enjoy sitting down on the cushion.
Yeah.
I feel like it puts me in a different mindset and prepares me. But I do have the aching knees and stuff like that. When I sit in a chair, I can sit for longer, but it doesn't feel the same. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I'll just repeat it for the people at home if they didn't hear it, which is this question about posture and reframing it as the benefits to sitting in the traditional cross-legged cushion style versus sitting in a chair, and that experience of discomfort that comes, especially as your body is still getting used to the cushion, and that it's easier to sit for longer periods in a chair. Pros and cons. And also depends on your goal. And really being honest with ourselves. Why am I meditating? If you're meditating to, right, and because there's all kinds of different motivations, aspirations. And you said you're a little bit new to it, so you don't have to know yet or have a grand, aspiration. You can just be like, this feels like a good idea, and maybe it'll help me suffer a little bit less and have a little bit more ease in my life, so I'm learning it. But if your goal is really you want to take this thing as one of the core things, and even if you have a lower aspiration than enlightenment, when I say as far as it can go, like real transformative experience, even if we have a lower goal, one of the necessities for happiness in this life is compassion. There's so much pain in the human experience, just in the nervous system of a human body. There's so many unpleasant sounds, and so many unpleasant smells, and so many tastes, and thoughts. How many unpleasant thoughts did you have today? And unpleasant emotions, right? Like pain is a huge part of the human condition. It's just part. You take birth, and there's going to be all of this unpleasant shit that you just have to deal with all the time. Without compassion, we suffer about that shit. We hate it, we judge it, we fear it, we get strung out on drugs trying to avoid it. We do all kinds of crazy things trying to avoid our pain. There's a long-winded way of saying the pain of sitting there. I feel like, when I started meditating, I was so intolerant. I was fidgety, and I couldn't stand not being comfortable. Hated it. But the more I just sat here hating it, like, this fucking sucks. The more I started to get more tolerance for, it sucks, but I can be with it. And eventually learning to care about it, like to actually develop compassion for your own achy knees. Tolerance and friendliness. And so there's a huge benefit to sitting in a posture that's a bit uncomfortable. Personally, I don't think there's any spiritual benefit to sitting on the floor or on a cushion. I don't believe it. The Buddha never was, he was not posture wasn't, even in the mindfulness instructions, there's no real posture instruction. It just says, sitting down, bringing mindfulness. Now, all of the statues we see are of the cross-legged meditator. Now, if you don't have a chair, this is a pretty good way to sit. If you're a homeless person like the Buddha was, wanderer out in the, if you're not going to have a chair, you're going to sit down on the ground, you're going to cross your legs and, maybe make yourself a little cushion of some bushes or something. And your body gets quite used to this, actually. And there is something about having an upright spine just for the energy of wakefulness. So sitting on a cushion can become very supportive of meditation and eventually even comfortable. There, your body gets used to it. You're making this sort of tripod with your knees. You're not there yet. Your hips need to open more so that both knees can get flat. But and that'll happen. And then once you get there, you're like, actually, I can sit like this for an hour with some discomfort, but the discomfort is our practice. As part of our practice is an opportunity for developing the necessary compassion. Now, I know I'm being long-winded, but if you want to, so again, I was saying, like, what's your goal? If you want to get free, compassion is necessary. If you want to get really concentrated and the discomfort is a bit of a distraction from the concentration that you're seeking, sitting in a chair might be more suitable. Sometimes when I am on retreat and I want to get really concentrated and I want to sit for an hour or 2 hours, I won't sit on a cushion, I'll sit in a chair because I can, and after 40 minutes in a chair, you're fucking uncomfortable there too. But I feel like I can sustain that posture for a couple of hours because sometimes I want to get really concentrated before I open to the mindfulness. It's one of the techniques that'll let you see more clearly if you, so sometimes I'll sit in a chair for a period of time. I know that was a lot. My last statement is up to you. Sometimes sit in a chair, sometimes sit on a cushion. I liked what you said, and you could say more about it if you want. There's something about taking this posture. And I think it's probably just because of all the cushions we've seen, all of the statues we've seen, but it feels spiritual. It's like, this feels like I'm really meditating. And when I'm chilling on the couch, it doesn't feel like I'm really meditating. I get that. And I think there's a problem with that. Because ultimately, we want to be able to bring our mindfulness into every aspect of our life, every activity, walking down the street, driving, riding the motorcycle, riding the bicycle, at work, taking a shit, having sex, whatever you're doing, mindfulness. And there's a danger of conditioning your mind to, I'm only mindful when I'm in this rarefied posture with my legs crossed and I'm acting super spiritual. That's real mindfulness, and pooping isn't. But the Buddha was quite clear in these instructions. Bring this mindfulness to every activity. Sit down and train your mind to be present. Come back to the breath, come back to the body. Get here, and then try to be here in everything that you do. And how often are we sitting around with our legs crossed? You all the time. So I think on that level, from that angle, maybe sitting in a chair, if you sit in a chair at home and you sit in a chair at work, better to condition yourself, like, whenever I'm sitting in a chair, I'm being mindful. And, because I'm rather than I'm only mindful with my legs crossed. So Pros and cons.
Love to think about it.
Like to think about pros and cons for posture. Elias, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something you told me helped me was if I would get, sometimes I get numbness, I get some weird things. And he gave me a really good idea on just, if you need to move, don't just do, just like, bring mindfulness to your movement. Like, I'm going to move my, right? So that's helped me.
Absolutely.
In my practice, just like something's going numb, it's like, gosh, this is, it's unbearable. Bring mindfulness to actual movement. Let me go back to you.
I destroyed my knee last year in a motorcycle accident. And as I was on a chair for about a year, I couldn't cross my legs. And I'm still at the place where I can't quite get in the posture. I have to have the support. And it's a bit uncomfortable, but I like sitting like this. And I also want to stretch out my knee to be able to get back to that full lotus, half lotus. There's a question on Zoom from Christopher. Christopher, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
Thanks. Can you hear me, Noah?
Yep.
Thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. I'm really grateful. My question is, I've read so many damn books on meditation and Buddhism, and I still haven't got any clarification as to what's the difference between insight meditation, which is Vipassana, and then the other one, is it Samatha, the relaxation one, I guess is what you call it. And to this day, like I said, I don't know what the real difference is, and if I should be doing one as opposed to the other, or are there certain times you're supposed to be doing one and then supposed to be doing Vipassana during certain, you get what I'm saying? Like
I need a little more clarity on what you're what's the other one? Are you shamatha? Is that what it is?
Well, I'm struggling with the pronunciation, but in our tradition, in the Theravada tradition,
yeah,
he talks about Vipassana, which is the insight meditation, right?
Yes.
And then the other one, which you just pronounced, it begins with an S.
Shamatha.
And yes. And that one, I think, is just the one where you're just kind of like following your breath, whatever. I'm guessing you're following your breath regardless of which one.
Yeah.
But my question is, what is the fundamental difference? Because to me, my understanding of insight meditation is they just arise. So it doesn't matter what meditation you're doing.
Right.
The insights just kind of arise. But I'm wondering, like from a Buddhist perspective, what is the difference?
Okay. Good question. And I have an opinion. I have an answer. Everybody hear it loud enough in here? Yeah. So I would classify, so when you look at the Eightfold Path, there is this, the seventh factor and the eighth factor are the two meditation instructions that the Buddha gives. He says, here's the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path, mindfulness, develop mindfulness. It's what you're referring to as insight, vipassana, satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness. We call it vipassana meditation. In English, that translates as insight meditation, something close to insight. So that's the seventh factor. The eighth factor of the path, Christopher, is concentration. And so that's what you're calling shamatha, or we call it jhana meditation, or the absorptions. The Buddha said both are necessary. Both are spokes on the Eightfold Path. If you want to get free, here's the 8 aspects of your life that will lead to freedom. One of them is learning to concentrate the mind. One of them is learning mindfulness. The difference between mindfulness and concentration is exclusive. Concentration is focusing your attention on one thing and excluding everything else. Mindfulness is inclusive, bringing, as I was saying at the end, bringing inclusive present time awareness to your mind, your emotions, your body, your speech, your life, your relationships, internal and external. Mindfulness is holistic of our human experience. Concentration is just focusing on a small aspect of what's happening. Now, the way that I teach mindfulness, I did it tonight, I always do it, is a little bit of both. When we start with what we call mindfulness of the breath, we're actually doing concentration practice. If you are intentionally returning your attention to a single object, like the breath, you are not being mindful. You are concentrating. Does that make sense to everybody in the room? Does that make sense to you, Christopher? Oh,
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. So I tend to believe, the way that I was taught, was that we do need to get a little bit of concentration. And so whenever I'm teaching and in my own practice, the first 5 or 10 minutes, just concentrate on the breath. As you see, I like to set it up by let's establish some loving kindness. Let's have a friendly attitude, and then concentrate on the breath. Come back over and over, and then expand. What else is happening in your body? What's happening in your heart? What's happening in your mind? What sounds are here? What sense door stimuli is present? So it becomes inclusive. It becomes mindfulness. But as long as you're choosing one thing, you're concentrating. So most mantra practices are concentration. Even the way that sometimes we do loving kindness or compassion or forgiveness meditation, where you're saying the same phrases over and over. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be free from suffering. If you're really just focusing your mind on saying those phrases, it's a jhana, it's a concentration, a samadhi practice. Concentration by itself will not lead to liberation, according to the Buddha. No matter how good you get on concentrating, you will not get free that way. Mindfulness, vipassana, insight is a necessary ingredient in freedom. I want to use some cooking analogy of you have to have yeast to make bread. I don't know, but free. I learned concentration from the Brahmanic, yogic, Indian tradition. They taught me how to get super concentrated. It didn't get me free from suffering. It just gave me these temporary bliss states. I'm not interested in temporary bliss states. I'm interested in the end of the self-created suffering that we humans experience. Mindfulness was what gave me that. Does that make sense? Did I actually clarify it for you, or did I go too far past it?
No, it actually makes a lot more sense now. I think with me, I haven't really looked deeply at the Eightfold Path yet, so I'm sure that when I do that, it'll probably make more sense.
And I think the simple way to think about it is practices that exclude versus practices that include. Mindfulness includes your whole being. A lot of meditations tell you to ignore your mind. Mindfulness says turn towards your mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it does help.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, I've got a few thoughts about, I was thinking, I've been spending some time helping a friend get sober. And it was just so hard for them in lockdown, in isolation, and not having community, and not having, and I know that that's been so many people's experiences. And I was just sort of feeling like tonight's the first time I'm teaching to a live sangha, and in the last 3 months. And so I was having a feeling of kind of a celebratory feeling of like, yes, finally, human beings in the room together. But he and I were reflecting on like the resilience of like how resilient we can be to go through really deeply difficult experiences, deeply painful experiences, loneliness, isolation, you know, all of the pain that we experience in life, and that we are, you know, we have some human capacity to heal, to be resilient, to tolerate real difficulties and heartbreaks and, you know, months of loneliness and isolation, and come out the other side. I'm just amazed at the human capacity for suffering, right? This Dharma, this first noble truth, dukkha, the Buddha's, everyone suffers, but there's levels of suffering. And everyone has it. Nobody, no living being doesn't suffer some. But, you know, some of us suffer a little bit, and some of us just suffer so much. And even the beings that have suffered so much dukkha, so much, have a resilient ability. There's something about the human capacity for healing and awakening and compassion and forgiveness that I truly believe that no matter what we have been through, no matter what people go through, there's the ability to heal it. There is a, for lack of a better word, a Buddha nature. There's something within us that even when our mind is fucked up and our wires are crossed from our traumas and our addictions and, you know, everything that happens, there's something in us that is unwounded, that is naturally able to see clearly and respond wisely and have compassion for the immense pain that we've walked through or that other people have walked through. And I guess we call it resilience. And this is part of the Buddha's teaching, that no matter who you are or what you've been through or how difficult it's been, Buddha nature, you have the ability to wake up. And that ability is given. All of us have the ability. Not everyone has the willingness, because it sounds like, oh yeah, you're able to do it. Yes, as if it's easy or something. We're all able to do it. Everyone's able to do it. There's nobody that's unable to wake up. But there are very few, even though there's a human resiliency, there's very few who are willing to, because part of this healing practice, it's so, you know, we call our place against the stream because we're being asked to turn towards our pain and our achy knees and our broken hearts. And it's the path to freedom. And everyone can, but so few have the willingness to say, yes, I'm willing to be uncomfortable. Yes, I'm willing to feel my pain rather than continue running from it. Yes, I'm willing to forgive myself and others rather than staying in my suffering of my hatred. I mean, this world, it's so, I mean, I'm so proud of the protests. I'm so proud of the, you know, just what's happening, the wise response, the general wise response to, yeah, we're gonna fucking march in the streets against this ongoing racist ignorance that has been happening from the beginning of time, certainly from the beginning of this country. And I think that on some level, I'm a little bit of I definitely have a nihilistic tendency. Like, I love the Dharma and I love we can do it, and the Buddha, like, only a handful of people in each generation are going to do it. Like, that makes sense to me. And the Buddha was quite clear. He's like, humanity is not waking up. Humanity is asleep. But a handful of people, a handful of radical individuals in each generation will wake up. Do you want to do that? Here's the instructions if you have the willingness to do it. No matter what you've been through, you're resilient, you can heal, you can wake up. But I just love seeing so many thousands of people in the streets talking about, hopefully most, maybe, but the desire for justice and equality, and I just find it so beautiful. And because, yeah, I've got a nihilistic, tendency. There's a real shadow in my own mind of not really having a lot of respect for humanity. I just think, like, people are so fucked, and society is so fucked, and like racism is the status quo everywhere, and it always has been. And it's just so fucking wrong, but it's the reality that we live in, that we're born into. And without some deep dive into our own heart and psyche, that status quo just continues. So I'm so pleased that there's a whole bunch of people, and a whole bunch of people in my life that I wouldn't expect to be facing these issues. And I just think it's so good. I think it's so good. The Buddha, the Buddha was really quite clearly about developing communities where everyone was welcome. And, regardless of, in his case, in his society, caste, which is race, and, gender, like he did all of this radical social, political empowerment of people. But he wasn't that interested in talking about it. He was just like, yeah, of course, we're all have Buddha nature, all of us. And when was asked about it, he was just like, yeah, of course, it has nothing to do with race, nothing to do with gender, orientation, none of that. If you're a human being, you have the ability to wake up, period. Human beings have the ability to wake up. We're all the same in that way, and that ultimate spiritual awakening capacity. And that we do it through connecting with each other and learning to listen, and learning to be mindful, and they're turning towards our own minds and seeing, oh, wow, look at all of this ignorance in my own mind. Where did that come from? And stop pretending like we're, perfect and spiritual, and just being like, oh yeah, like I have to live with this crazy human mind and all of this conditioning. And I need to try to see through it and develop some discernment, some wisdom. Curious about your thoughts around anything. around resilience, around awakening, around the revolution. Whether you're at home on Zoom and you have some thoughts, or if you're in the room, what are your thoughts? How's all this landing? And I guess part of my question is starting to come out of self-isolation. How's that going? I feel like there's a little bit of this, like we just got off of a 3-month meditation retreat or a 3-month prison sentence, or like you just got out a little bit, or you're just kind of, not quite out. It's like when I was in a group home when I was a kid, they let me go home for a weekend, but then I had to go back to the group home, like 1 weekend a month or so. I'd get a little freedom and then I'd have to go back. It feels like that, of this sort of soft opening, like a couple of places, we can have 10% of the people in the room.
What are your thoughts on trying to instigate awakening vis-a-vis letting it unfold as it will, because it's going to anyway?
I'd have to hear a little bit more about what you mean by it unfold and it's going to anyways.
Like I guess what I'm trying to say is being gentle with yourself, realizing your flaws, realizing your shortcomings, realizing your current acceptance of things and that sort of thing. In relation, trying to push past that, trying to move things up along, grow as fast as you can.
I don't know if you guys could hear at home. I do like this question, and I would sort of frame it as the acceptance of ourselves. A huge part of our practice is radical self-acceptance. This is, like where I'm at right now. The humility to be like, I've got all of these judgments and fears and opinions and impatience and cravings and, all of, just, that sort of doing an inventory and be like, this is what my mind is like. This is what my attitudes and my, this is my top 10 ways that I suffer in my life these days. So part of it is like, and that's true. And we accept that. And then the other part is acceptance is just the place that we act from. Acceptance is not, I accept just as I am. The opposite of denial. I'm no longer denying who I am or how I think or how I feel or how I act. I've got the humility to use the 12-step language, the shortcomings, the defects. In Buddhism, we talk about the hindrances that we live with. And so I'm not in denial of it, but acceptance doesn't mean I'm not going to counter them, right? Like I'm going to practice the opposites. I'm going to put into practice, I know I'm a selfish person. I'm going to put into practice a lot of generosity. I'm not going to just accept, I'm selfish. I'm greedy, I'm attached. I'm going to, the counter, I'm going to do service. I'm going to give money. I'm going to give time. I'm going to do the shit that I don't want to do as the antidotes to that self-centered tendency. I accept I have a selfish tendency. And so I do a lot of service. So I'm very generous. I try to do what I can for others, even though I don't really want to some of the time. So there's that balance of, yes, accept ourselves, the humility, but then change, but not with of judgment, not with like, I have to, change overnight, but at some point we have to realize, man, I've been going the wrong direction. I was living a life of I, me, mine, craving, clinging, fear. I want to, and that's taken me south, for lack of a better word. Like, I really want to live a life of love and generosity and compassion and wisdom. And that's north. So I accept I've been going in the wrong, I didn't have the right intentions. I was, right? And now the Dharma, from me, the Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, now I have this map and I realize I've been heading the wrong direction. I want to be kind and loving and forgiving and compassionate and wise. I want to have wisdom. But just because I want to have it, I can't make it happen. I got to get on the cushion. I got to do, be generous. I got to engage in community. I've got to practice some renunciation. I'm going to stop lying and stop stealing and stop sexual misconduct and stop getting loaded and, right, the 5 precepts. I'm going to take all these actions and slowly the direction of our life changes. And then even when we're heading in the right direction, firmly on the path, heading north, still one step at a time. You can't run to liberation. It's like a Thich Nhat Hanh zombie mindfulness, just slow, mindful progress, slow, and then once in a while a couple of steps backwards, and then it's just it's a fucking long-term endeavor to really change. Well, that's what we're talking about, right? Changing, transformation, healing. Months, years, decades of staying sober, being of service, meditating, seeing more clearly, learning to respond more wisely. So yes, acceptance, but action. Acceptance followed with doing the right thing. As they say in recovery, the next indicated action. Doing it. Because, sometimes and again, this is the Buddhist view. Human beings are not going to get liberated without incredibly hard work. It is not our birthright to be free. It is our potential. It is a possibility. Anybody can do it. We're resilient no matter what, our addictions, our traumas, we can heal. But you're not going to heal just because you want to. You're going to, you got to meditate. You got to be of service. You got to participate. You got to be generous. You got to practice renunciation. You got to do a lot of fucking work to go to the destination. And the destination is freedom or recovery or nirvana. Please.
Do you think someone is being too awake to the detriment, let's say, to themselves, especially in light of what's going on? I mean, can someone be so awake that they just take on the emotions and the feelings of others to feel everything, just to have so much compassion, to detriment for oneself?
For those of you at home, the question was, is it possible to be too awake to the detriment of okay, sorry, I'm just looking at let me repeat the question. Can we do, is there such thing as being too compassionate and too awake to all of the Buddhist answer is no. What's happening is that compassion isn't being balanced by equanimity. So, and which makes it not, there's a lack of wisdom in the compassion. True compassion has no attachment to things being other than they are. The fully enlightened Buddha, compassion for all living beings in a war-torn culture of sexist, racist oppression. He's not overwhelmed. He has compassion for all living beings. But it's because he has really woken up, and his compassion is free from clinging. Now, for us, your experience, many, is that like, well, we care deeply, but we don't actually have wisdom and equanimity. So it's not, yes, it's overwhelming, but it's overwhelming because it's not. I heard one years ago. I was at this retreat, and I heard a Tibetan Buddhist teacher say, now, when it comes to compassion, there's two kinds of compassion. There's true compassion, which has no, just has a deep caring and infinite, resilient capacity for all of the suffering in the world. And then there's idiot compassion, where you think it should be different than it is, and it's overwhelming to you because you're so attached to your views of how you think it should be. And he called it idiot compassion, which is mean, but also true. Right? And his view, and I believe it's in line with the Buddha's view, which is that we call it compassion, but there's a bit of clinging in it. It's not, we haven't fully balanced it with loving kindness, with appreciation, with seeing the whole picture, with understanding equanimity, that all beings have their own karma, that no matter how much we love them, we can't change them. Everyone has to do the work for themselves, and we don't let that be an excuse to not love and not care and not engage and not protest and do it, but with a wisdom view that says, I know I can't change anybody else, but I'm going to still try to educate people, and I'm going to still try to confront people, and I'm still going to show up and, be big and loud, and I'm not going to be attached to the outcome. I'm going to care big, and I'm not going to suffer about other people changing the way that I believe that they should. Does that make? Yeah. There's a question here online about resilience, saying that I feel that I do all of the things and I do so over time, but resilience, my ability to stay resilient over weeks, months, is difficult. How might I remain resilient over time? I don't know what the trick is. I really don't know. I mean, when you phrase it like that and you're doing the things and you're doing so over time, I think that sometimes, we just have to look at like, okay, do I have a balance of heart practices, loving kindness and compassion and forgiveness and equanimity? Am I balancing that with the insight, concentration, mindfulness practices? Am I engaged in community, refuge, and sangha? That, I think that helps with resilience a lot, meeting regularly with other people and getting that connection and that support and that sort of feeling of like we're in this together. I think that has helped me a lot with the perseverance on the path. I mean, I have just my own personal experience to reflect on, and I don't know the answer to this question. what helps it. I just know that I started practicing and I was like, this is my best bet. Mindfulness works a little bit, so I'm going to keep doing it over and over. And forgiveness is really hard, but I'm going to keep doing it over and over. And, I just kept doing it. And the more I did it, the more I feel like more resilience has come, the outcome. I went to get on my motorcycle. And I was just like, wow, my motorcycle got stolen. And then there's that kind of disbelief of like, did I park it somewhere else in my garage? Pretty sure it was in my garage in that spot. And it's just not there. And then watching the sort of sadness and the anger and then the letting go. I'm like, okay, insurance, police, my motorcycle's gone. And that resilience and that ability is the outcome of 30 years of meditation. 30 years ago, I would have like been in a rage and been, I'd steal someone else's motorcycle or something I don't know, but like before practice, I didn't have, I would have suffered about something like that for a long time. And, I know the Dharma has taught me it's not worth suffering about. I did all of the next right actions. I filed the police report and did all of those things that you need to do. And then you let go. And that's something that the practice has taught us, has the potential to teach us. I guess to be fully transparent, although I didn't suffer a lot, I didn't have a lot of anger or kind of suffering in that way, but I did pretty quickly start looking online for a new bike to buy. I don't have a lot of attachment, but I still have a lot of desire. I'm like, well, all right, I guess I'm going shopping. Not that I can fucking afford it, but still I've been looking, Craigslist all weekend. From home, we're just about out of time. Let's leave it there for tonight. My closing thoughts are practice hard. Get on the cushion every day. Come on retreats when you can. There's so much cool shit happening online retreats and, just great things, great opportunities. And use everything. This is what I try to do in my life. Use everything as an opportunity for compassion, for non-attack. Opportunities to be generous, to help each other. And next Saturday, I have a day long here from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. A handful of people can come. The registration's on the website. People have already registered. I think we can have, about 20 people in the room. Everyone else is going to do it at home on Zoom. If you're at home, if you want to register, you can register for the day long. Do and practice next Saturday, and or come and practice here in the room. There is a registration fee. There's a ability to pay half online or to ask for a scholarship if you're broke. I'm trying to support the meditation center. Our rent is $3,000 a month. We haven't had any income for the last 3 months. That's not completely true. I did get a generous donor that said, let me help make sure you don't go out of business while you're closed. But people haven't been able to come to classes, so haven't been donating much. So everything that we do here pretty much is by donation, except for maybe when we do a day long or a retreat and we have some registration fee. So if you're at home and you can help, please be generous. You can make donations through the website, through the Against the Stream Meditation PayPal or Venmo or Stripe or all of those things. Please make some donations to help support the center. And if you're here in person, there's a bowl over there where you can leave a donation, or if you want to do a plastic, there's a card reader I can pull out over there too. Yep. These talks are going live on Zoom and to the Against the YouTube channel. We're not going to stream on Facebook or Instagram anymore. So just the Zoom and the YouTube channel, they'll be uploaded to the YouTube channel. Tonight, this is actually recording live to YouTube. We had an undisclosed location, something like that, unpublic or something, but then it'll be available. Cool, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here at home. See you Monday. Also Thursday, I do the Refuge Recovery talk. We're gonna be talking about right livelihood. I forget if I'm on action or livelihood. Thursday night, 5 p.m. I do that. I think I'm gonna do it on Zoom this week. So check that out. May any goodness that comes from our practice be shared outward in all directions with all beings everywhere. May each one of us wake up, and together may we create a positive change on this planet.